Hi, my name is Ariane Ivanier, and I am writing a book on the role of mental frameworks in advocacy and our quest for progress. The three big mental frameworks that I kind of talk about in the book is one, our relationship with our country's history. The second one is our country's regional relationship, how we view each other based on where you live and how different regions one another view one another, and how that ultimately separates people and puts people into categories and in-groups and out-groups, and instead of actually harboring some sort of coalition. The third big theme is our obsession with the binary, how in this country we think about things as black or white, and this ultimately leads to polarization, and how we have become in politics, in our society, everywhere, in this chokehold of polarization of us versus them. The reason that I wanted to write this book and why I was inspired to write it is because we're clearly in this point of precipice of change where everything has been changing around us all the time. And then I started to think about this idea of where we're going next, this idea of progress, this conversation that we're having about what the world is going to be. I thought that there was a missing part of that conversation, and that missing part was sort of how our mental frameworks, how our personal minds, and how we each decide to be as people affects that. And the thing that I find to be different or unique about my book is that too often we sort of think about advocacy and progress simply on the reactionary level, but I thought that there was something that wasn't being talked about enough, and that was the way in which each individual, whether you are the most progressive person or a person who doesn't really know much about advocacy or progress or politics or anything, each of us has a role to play in changing our behavior to ultimately create real, tangible change. I talked to a lot of professors, talked to Robert Smith, who's a professor and author, and he's renowned for his scholarship in race and politics in the United States. Spoke to Glenn Gaher, who is an evolutionary psychologist as well as a professor, about how our brains evolve and how our relationship with our past sort of correlates with actually psychology and all that. I wrote this book because I didn't think it was something that was really being talked about enough in progressive groups and advocacy groups, and I just want this to be something that people read and acknowledge. I just want people to read this book and maybe change the way they think, acknowledge the fact that they didn't realize that they could play such a big role just by doing such a small thing. And the readers that I think would really enjoy this book are honestly members of Generation Z, because that is sort of, the conversation is really around us. We are the next generation. We are the people that are going to work kind of on the front lines of this big moment of progress, this big moment of change, of calling for more progress, calling for bigger change in our government, in our society, and all these things. My name is Ariane Ivanier. My book is called Mental Frameworks for Our Modern Revolution. Change your mind if you want to change the world.